You know that saying, curiosity killed the cat. Well, today, we're going to be curious about death itself. What does it really mean to die? And what happens afterward? We're diving into a Christian perspective on all of this. We're going to be using this fascinating curriculum called Adventures in the Story of Hope. And it all starts, of course, with the story of Adam and Eve.
Yeah. What I find fascinating is how this curriculum uses that story, the Garden of Eden story, I mean, to explore this really profound concept of spiritual death.
Yeah.
It's not just about like physical death, but about something much deeper.
Okay. So set the stage for us. What are some of the key ideas this curriculum lays out?
Well, it all starts with these 8 essential truths, right?
Yeah.
And the fourth one zeroes in on death specifically. But I think to really grasp it, you need the context of those first 3 truths.
Okay.
God exists, he's all-powerful, and he created us, humans. That's kind of the foundation. Then, boom, sin enters the picture. That moment of disobedience that changes everything.
Right. Okay. So we've got God, we've got humans, we've got sin, and then death enters the picture. So let's go to the Garden of Eden. The source really highlights the serpent's deception. He doesn't just tempt Eve. He plants these seeds of doubt about God.
It's like, yeah, he's twisting God's words, making him seem like, I don't know, like a spoil sport or something. Remember how he asks Eve, did God really say you couldn't eat from any tree in the garden? It's all about manipulation.
Yeah.
Trying to make Eve question God's goodness.
Right, and he falls for it. Hook, line, and thinker. The fruit is described as good for food, beautiful, and she hopes it'll make her wise like God. This desire to be like God, that's a huge theme here, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just Eve. This desire for like power, knowledge, for a kind of godlike status. It echoes throughout human history. It's a fundamental part of like the whole human experience.
So Eve takes a bite, and the source really emphasizes that Adam and Eve died that day. Like literally died that day. What's going on here?
That's where the curriculum makes this crucial distinction between physical and spiritual death. So they didn't like drop dead on the spot, but something huge, something profound did happen. Their relationship with God was fractured. That's spiritual death, this separation from the source of life.
So the curriculum actually describes it as something dying inside Adam and Eve. That closeness they once had with God, that peace and innocence, it's just gone.
Think about it this way. If you're suddenly cut off from the one who gave you life, wouldn't you feel this sense of loss? Like a sense of fear, even shame. And that's exactly what the text describes as Adam and Eve's reaction.
It's interesting how they try to hide from God. Like they think they can actually conceal their wrongdoing from an all-knowing being.
It's such a human response, though, isn't it? I mean, we all try to hide when we mess up.
Yeah.
But there's no escaping the consequences of sin. The curriculum uses a really striking visual to drive this point home. It's called the block illustration.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the block illustration?
So imagine a row of blocks standing upright, right? You knock one over and they all topple. That's how Adam's sin is portrayed. It sets off this chain reaction impacting like all of humanity.
Like a domino effect rippling through generations.
Exactly. And they connect this to Romans 5.1, which states that through Adam, sin entered the world and we're all born into that reality.
Wow, that is heavy stuff. And they don't stop there. They bring in this analogy of a cut flower to further illustrate this whole spiritual death thing.
Yes. A freshly cut flower might still look beautiful for a while, right?
Yeah.
But it's already doomed because it's been severed from its life source.
So we've got this image of a flower cut off from its source of life, slowly wilting away. Is that what spiritual death looks like for us humans? Like, are we just doomed to fade away?
Yeah, it's a powerful image for sure. And it really gets you thinking about, the implications of this whole separation from God. If we were created to have this close relationship with him, what happens when that connection is severed?
The curriculum doesn't really lay out all the consequences, but it hints at some pretty big effects. Remember how Adam and Eve reacted after they, disobeyed? Fear, shame.
Yeah, exactly. Those emotions are so revealing. They suggest this loss of peace, a sense of alienation, maybe even, a feeling of being unworthy. Wouldn't you feel that way if you knew you'd, disappointed the one who created you?
It's like a wall has been erected between them and God. That intimacy they once enjoyed is just shattered.
And that's what the cut flower analogy captures so well, right? It's this stark visual representation of what it means to be, spiritually dead.
It also makes you wonder about the serpent's motives. Like, why go through all this trouble to deceive Eve? What did he gain from it?
Now you're getting to the heart of the matter. The curriculum emphasizes how the serpent deliberately cast doubt on God's character. He didn't just want Eve to, you know, disobey. He wanted to undermine her trust in God.
So it's not just about the action itself, it's about the motivation behind it. The serpent is trying to sow like discord to create this rift between humanity and God.
Exactly. It's a far more insidious form of attack. And tragically, it worked. Adam and Eve's sin had a devastating impact, not only on themselves, but on, on all their descendants. That's why the curriculum is so focused on this idea that we're all born spiritually dead, separated from God.
And that brings us to this concept of judgment. The curriculum quotes Hebrews 9:27, which says, "It is appointed for men to die once, but after this, the judgment." So physical death isn't the end of the story.
That's right. This life is just a chapter in a much, much larger narrative. And according to this curriculum, what happens after we die depends on our relationship with God.
So judgment isn't just about being, like, punished for our sins. It's more about taking stock of where we stand with God.
It's a pretty profound thought, isn't it? And it raises so many questions. Like, what does judgment actually entail? What are the consequences of spiritual death? And perhaps most importantly, is there any way to escape those consequences?
And that's where this idea of God's provision for sin comes in. The curriculum doesn't go into detail in this particular section, but it hints at a solution, a way out of this predicament.
Right. Remember, these 8 essential truths build upon each other. We've explored the problem of sin and its consequences, but there's still hope. The remaining truths will likely offer a path forward, a way to deal with this whole spiritual death situation.
So if spiritual death is like a wall separating us from God, what would it take to break down that wall, to bridge that chasm?
Now you're asking the right questions. And that's what makes this curriculum so compelling. It doesn't just give you all the answers. It sparks your curiosity and encourages you to dig deeper, to search for those answers yourself.
It's like they're leaving us hanging on a cliffhanger, but in a good way. It makes you want to keep exploring these ideas to see where they lead.
And that's exactly what we'll do in our next segment. We'll delve into the remaining 4 essential truths and see what they reveal about God's provision for sin and the possibility of, overcoming spiritual death.
Okay, so we've been talking about some pretty heavy stuff: spiritual death, separation from God, and this looming judgment. But it sounds like, this curriculum isn't all doom and gloom, right? There's this hint of a solution, this God's provision for sin. What could that be?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? The question that kind of drives the rest of this curriculum, like they've set up this problem, this seemingly impossible situation, and now we're all waiting to see how it gets resolved.
Right.
Remember those 8 essential truths? They're designed to build upon each other, right? So we've been grappling with the first 4, focusing on sin and its consequences. But the remaining 4, I think that's where the real hope lies.
So if the first 4 truths are about the problem, the last 4 are about the solution.
I think that's a great way to think about it.
Okay.
And if we go back to that powerful analogy of the cut flower, what would it take to bring that flower back to life? You'd need to reconnect it to its source of life, right?
So is God's provision for sin all about reconnecting with God, about bridging that separation that was caused by sin?
You're getting it. It's about restoring that broken relationship, about finding a way back to the source of life. But the question is how? How can such a profound separation be bridged? It would take something really extraordinary.
This is where it gets really interesting. The curriculum doesn't spell out exactly what that provision is in this section, but it does emphasize that physical death isn't the end, right? Judgment is coming.
And that's such a crucial point, because if there is a provision for sin, then judgment takes on a whole new meaning. It becomes not just about punishment, but about whether or not we've, accepted that provision, whether we've taken steps to reconcile with God.
So if spiritual death is being separated from God, what does spiritual life actually look like? Is it about, closeness, intimacy, that sense of peace and belonging that Adam and Eve lost in the garden?
Those are such great questions. And I think that's the beauty of this curriculum. It doesn't just spoon feed you the answers. It sparks your curiosity and invites you to grapple with these huge questions, for yourself.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, if this source is right, we're all dealing with the legacy of Adam and Eve's sin. We're all born spiritually dead, separated from God. But there's hope. There's this provision for sin, a way to reconnect, to find our way back to the source of life.
It's a journey of discovery, and we've only just begun to explore it, together. This deep dive has given you a glimpse into one perspective on death and its implications. But the real adventure is in, continuing to explore these ideas, to wrestle with these tough questions, and to seek out that provision for yourself.
And maybe we'll revisit this whole topic in a future episode and delve deeper into those last four essential truths. But until then, keep those brains buzzing. What does spiritual life look like to you? What would it mean to be truly connected to God? Those are questions worth thinking about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.